Welcome, everyone. Hi. Lovely to see you all here. Welcome to a brand new edition of Amber Academy webinars. So, don't know if you know, guys, but today we have a very special edition and a very special guest joining us. And together today, we'll be doing some very applied anatomy on the gameplay of a true gem of the action adventure genre, the game The Last of Us. And we'll be looking at story structure, empathy, nonverbals, proxemics, spatial immersion, and much, much more. So I really hope this is reason enough for all of you to stay here with me and my guest tonight until the end. But before we dive into the juicy stuff, and there's a lot of it, let me be a good host and tell you a little bit about us. So, as you can see, my name is Sabrina, and I am Learning and Development Fairy here at Amber Studios. Well, not here, here is my home. But if you haven't interacted with us before today, well, you should know that Amber Studios is a game development agency growing fast and taking over new continents each year. We're present in Europe, US, Canada, and Mexico currently. And our wonderful, crafty, and talented people are working on all facets of game development, from game design to art, engineering to business intelligence, QA to full-on production. But one of my favorite things that we're doing in Amber is, well, the Amber Academy webinars program, which is an initiative that is born out of our love of learning and sharing knowledge with each other and the industry, but also doing our best to support talented people in the game dev community, wherever they are. So this webinar we're hosting today is dedicated to all of you watching, hoping to learn more about narrative game design and how to weave emotions in the gameplay. And here to enlighten us is the wonderful Dave Pimm, professor of computer game design at University of Suffolk. So Dave, hi Dave. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us everything you know about The Last of Us and why it's such a gem of player engagement tonight.
We've got 2 hours for that, Sabrina. We'll have a go.
I have 2 hours for that if you give us all your knowledge.
2 hours to discuss the 15-minute prologue. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. Thank you, Sabrina, for your lovely... Do you call me special and wonderful?
I did.
Goodness me, that's a first. Thank you very much.
And well deserved.
We'll see. And I'm not actually a professor. I'm just a lecturer.
Okay. Guys, he's just a lecturer.
So hello, everybody. Love to see some comments in chat. Just give me a hello. Let me know where you are in the world. And I'd love to know if you've played The Last of Us and what you think of it. And we'll have a little read through your comments as we go. So I'm Dave Pimm. I'm a lecturer here at the University of Suffolk, and I teach on the undergraduate game design course and the postgraduate game development course. I've been here for about 10 years lecturing. And before that, I was 12 years in the games industry. I worked in AAA and indie. Started off as an artist and a designer. And then I became a writer. And then I moved into the position of creative director. So lots of industry experience and then lots of lecturing experience after that. And I was really, really pleased to be invited to join you guys. I've heard so many wonderful things about Amber and about you, Sabrina. Turkey, what's turkey noises? Gobble, gobble. Is it Thanksgiving? I know Thanksgiving's around the corner, isn't it? Hey, oh, I see. Oh my God, I can see some old students in chat. You managed to make me tear up faster than some Netflix series. Oh man, yeah, and we'll soon figure out how that happens. That's what we're going to discuss today. I'll give you a quick, as you're typing in your comments, I'll give you a quick rundown of the agenda for today. So in a few moments, Alina's going to play the video. So we're going to watch the 15-minute prologue. I've chosen the one with the subtitles as well. So in a few moments, we're going to be watching that for 15 minutes. So just sit back, make sure you've got a tissue, especially if you've not seen it before, you're going to need that. Then we'll go into my PowerPoint. So after we've watched a 15-minute prologue, I'll bring up my PowerPoint, and we'll spend about an hour or so discussing the first couple of minutes, setting up everything we need to know. Then we'll have a little break. So about halfway through, we'll have a little break, little coffee break. You can all go and grab a coffee, have a quick fag, type in any questions you've got into your chat, and then we'll reconvene. So we'll have a little 8 or 9 minute break. We'll all get back together again, and I'll go through some of the questions and comments, and we'll chat about those for 10 minutes. And then we'll spend the remaining 45 or so minutes just whizzing through the last of the prologue, and we'll go back to my PowerPoint. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to chat about, do more Q&A, chat about some of the things we've discussed. Okay, are we all good? So lovely to see you. Lots of you in there. It's great to see. Okay, we'll go off to the prologue. So tissues that are ready. And Alina, if you would like to play the 15-minute prologue. Enjoy, everybody. See you in 15 minutes.
Tommy, listen to me. He is the contractor. He's the contractor, okay? I can't lose this job. I understand. Let's talk about this in the morning, okay? We'll talk about it in the morning. All right, good night.
Hey.
Scoot.
Monday at work, huh?
What are you still doing up? It's late.
Oh, crud, what time is it?
It's way past your bedtime.
But it's still today.
Honey, please, not right now. I do not have the energy for this.
Here.
What's this?
Your birthday? You kept complaining about your broken watch. So I figured, you know. You like it?
Honey, it's
What?
nice, but I think it's stuck. It's not...
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
Yeah, you wish.
Good night, baby girl.
Hello?
Sarah, honey, I need to get your daddy on the phone.
Uncle Tommy, what time
I
is
need
it?
to talk to your dad now. There's something...
Uncle Tommy? Hello? What was that all about? Dad? Daddy? You in here?
The riots seem to be somehow connected to the nationwide
Where the heck are
pandemic.
you?
We've received reports that victims afflicted with the infection show signs of increased aggression and
Move everybody out of here now. There's a gas leak. Hey, move!
there seems to be
Get
some
out of
commotion
here.
coming from
Let's get the hell out of here, run!
What was that? Dad? Dad? What is going on? There's his phone. Eight missed calls. Where the hell are you? Call me on my way. There you are.
Sarah, are you okay?
Yeah?
Does anyone come in here?
No, who would come in here?
Don't go near the doors. Just stand back there.
Dad, you're kind of freaking me out. What's going on?
It's the Coopers. Something ain't right with them. I think they're sick.
What kind of sick?
Jesus. Jimmy!
Dad?
Honey, come here. Come here. Jimmy! Jimmy, stay back! Jimmy, I am warning you! Don't!
You shot him.
Sarah,
Something this morning.
listen to me. There is something bad going on. We have got to get out of here. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Tell me, come on. Come on.
Where the hell you been? You have any idea what's going on out there?
I got some notion.
Holy shit. You got blood all over
It
you.
ain't mine. Let's just get out of here.
This ain't half the people in the city lost their minds.
Can we just please go?
Some sort of parasite or something. You gonna tell me what happened?
Later.
Hey, Sarah. How you holding up, honey?
I'm fine. Can we hear us on the radio?
Yeah, sure thing.
Thanks.
No cell phone. No radio. Yeah, we're doing great. A minute ago, newsman wouldn't shut up.
They say where to go?
They said, Army's putting up roadblocks on the highway. No getting into Travis County.
We need to get the hell out. Take 71.
71, that's where I'm at.
Did they say how many are dead?
Probably a lot. They found this one family all mangled inside their
Tommy.
house. Right. Sorry.
Jesus Christ, how did this happen?
They got no clue. But we ain't the only town. First they're saying it's just the South. Now they're going on about the East Coast, the West Coast. Holy hell. That's Lewis's farm. I hope that son bitch made it out.
I'm sure he did.
Were we sick?
No, of course not.
How do you know?
They said it's just people in the city. We're good.
Didn't Jimmy work in the city?
That's right, he did. We're fine.
Let's see what they need.
What do you think you're doing? Keep driving.
They got a kid, Joel.
So do we.
But we have room.
Hey!
Keep
Hey,
driving,
stop!
Tommy.
Stop!
You ain't seen what I seen. Someone else will come along.
You should have helped him.
Oh, this is bad. Everyone and their mother had the same damn idea.
We could just backtrack and...
Hey, what the fuck, man? Let's go!
Tommy!
Holy shit! What the fuck just happened?
Did you see that? Yes, I saw it.
Come on, people, move!
What are they running from?
Get us out of here.
I'm trying.
Oh no.
We can't stop here, Tommy.
I can't fucking drive through them, Joel!
Back up there!
They're behind me, too!
There!
Hold on! Go! Oh, fuck!
Daddy? Hey. Hey!
Get back, baby. Get back.
Dad?
I'm here, baby. I'm here. Come, give me your hand. What is it?
My leg hurts.
How bad?
Pretty bad.
We're gonna need to run.
Keep it safe. Come on, baby. Now hold on tight.
Daddy, I'm scared.
Joel, watch out!
Keep your eyes closed, honey.
Oh my!
Keep running!
Those people are on fire.
Don't look there.
Why are they doing that?
Just keep looking at me, baby.
Over there!
We're gonna get out of this. I promise.
Get back! There's too many of them! This way! Through the alley! Go!
Jesus.
He's dead! God damn it!
We're almost there. We're almost there, baby.
Now go through the fence! Keep going! Find your way out of here! Come on! Go! Get to the highway! Go! You got Sarah! I can outrun him!
Uncle Tommy?
I will meet you there! Hurry!
Daddy, we can't leave him!
He's gonna be fine. We're almost there.
They're getting closer. Dad?
It's okay, baby. We're safe. We're safe. Hey, we need help.
Stop!
Please. It's my daughter. I think her leg is broken.
Stop right there!
Okay. We're not sick.
Got a couple of civilians in the outer perimeter. Please advise.
Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy?
We're gonna get you to safety and go back for him, okay?
Sir, there's a little girl. But... Yes, sir.
Somebody, we've just been through hell. Okay, we just need... Oh, shit. Please don't.
Oh no.
Sarah. Move your hands, baby. I know, baby, I know. God. Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby, I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby, I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. No. No. No, no. Please. Please don't. Please.
Okay. God, it's hard, isn't it? This is the hardest lecture I ever do. Okay, hopefully you can see my presentation now. Give you all a couple of moments, have a sip of your coffee. So, quite incredible, yeah? From nothing to this response in 15 minutes. That's not to be sniffed at, that's quite an achievement. And there's actually a couple of really good reaction videos on YouTube. Do check them out. There's the elders react and the teens react to the prologue. And I'll be drawing from those and a lot of other reaction videos along the way. So we can actually listen very carefully to our players and we can understand what they're thinking at any given moment. It's very important that we do that. Oh, right. Brace yourself. Here we go. From nothing to that in 15 minutes. Okay, so we'll play a little game of make-believe. Imagine that we've all been called into the office and we'll be told, you've got a new IP, The Last of Us, and we're going to be responsible for designing the 15-minute prologue. So we're just going to take it from that point of view. So these are the things we have to do. We're going to have to create a 15-minute prologue, and that's the critical path, approximately 15 minutes. And in those 15 minutes, we need to introduce the virus outbreak and the zombies. We're going to end up by establishing Joel, the protagonist's need, and this is going to feed into the main story. So this is the thing that's going to be destroying his life and that he will need to overcome. That's his transformational journey in the main story. So we're going to leave the prologue at that point. Of course, it's not a film, it's a game. So we need to introduce interaction, introduce the players to navigation, look, and focus mechanics. And we're going to use these 15 minutes, this prologue, to identify our audience and the kind of emotive, experiential content of the game. So it's narrative driven, minimal challenge, so it's very low bar to entry. And fears and tears is kind of how I refer to it. So this is our job. So we now assemble around our whiteboards and try and figure out how the heck we do this. Probably got some concept art from our lovely concept artists here. So we've got pictures of Sarah and Joel and Uncle Tommy. These are our characters that we get to play with. Off you go. Design away. 50-minute prologue. Okay, I don't know where you guys are with story structure. So it goes back to Aristotle, poetics. You've got beginning, middle, and end. Okay. The beginning is the setup. This is where we start to immerse the audience, bond them to one or two characters and a little bit of exposition and backstory. Then into the complications and this sort of transformational journey through to a climax. And then the descending action, so this is kind of reflecting upon what's just happened and dealing with the new status quo. So the world is different, the characters are different at the end to how they were at the beginning. That's all your structural reforms. I mean, you get to the sort of 18th and 19th centuries and you see this rising action appearing, which is kind of already there, but it just gets solidified. And then you just plop stuff on there, your little turning points on it. Really straightforward. All you need to know as a game designer is just two things: that it's your job to create desirable emotional responses and the anticipation of desirable emotional responses. You must absolutely be able to do those two things. And that's exactly how you make the transition from amateur to professional, when you get good at eliciting a wide range of emotions in players. And absolutely crucially, creating an engagement so that they are always looking forwards to something. Because the second a player, or even watching a film, an audience watching a film or reading a novel, second your audience stops looking forward to something, they're going to bail. That is what this line is. Rising action. It's anticipation. And as game designers, we have access to all different types of anticipations. Typically in a story, we're going to be using mystery or suspense. We're not going to be interested in mystery today. We're interested in suspense and also using a little bit of fear as a driver as well. That is that line. It is tension increasing over time, always planting a seed of a possible outcome, an emotive outcome into the player's brain. Every moment in a game you are designing, you must be able to answer the question, what is the player looking forwards to here, 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 here? Absolutely critical. There are two things: desirable emotions and the anticipation of desirable emotions. That is what that is. Almost either for the Freytag triangle, 5 acts, which is exactly the same. It's right, it's the setup, rising action, and then dealing with it all, the new status quo. All structural forms are the same, and you get to Sitfield and Campbell, and you get all these different turning points in the different ways in which we might be able to transform a character. But the fundamental premise is exactly the same as it has been for thousands of years. Yep. So that's just structural form. So these are the things we have to do. We have to introduce the status quo. This is the world. This is the diegesis. That's the narrative of the world. These are the characters, where we are, when we are. We've got to do this stuff really quickly. We've got to build empathy. If there's no empathy, then Sarah's death will mean nothing. It's just a bunch of pixels on a screen. So we have to anthropomorphize these characters and build empathy. Empathy is utterly critical. If we fail at that, we fail. We will get no crying, get no tears or anything. The building anticipation, the rising action, that suspense. Again, utterly critical that we are in full control of this. And then we can just plop in those turning points and reversals is key. It's like a little roadmap for us along the rising action, creating a chain of cause and effect. So this is kind of like a classical structure, which is cause and effect. This happens, and then this happens, and this happens, and they're all connected. But it sort of bleeds a little, because it's interactive, it bleeds a little bit into the sort of the minimalist plot. That is, it's open-ended, and there's some moments where it's loosely plotted, sort of illusory, such that the player can reach around. So we're going to leave it open-ended. New equilibrium. This is how things are now compared to how they were at the beginning. It changes in 15 minutes. We've got to remember it's a game, so we've got to encourage agency and invite the player into this world to enhance the sense of presence. This is an important component of spatial immersion. We're appealing to multiple sensory channels, and we're creating this consistent logic in the diegesis, and also that the diegesis responds to the player, acknowledges and welcomes the player into the midst. Okay. And we're not going to start with a massive bunch of instructions at the front, no big info dump. We're going to progressively drip feed these tutorials along the way, and all very effortlessly in an interactive form. That's our job. That's what we've got to do. So we look at this as our starting point. Sarah dies. Rising action, tension rises over time, and we can start plopping in those turning points and figuring out how we're going to control the progress through the story. And we can get to this. So we're going to have these 2.5 minutes at the beginning as a cinematic. So this player sits back, and we want to introduce the player to the diagesis, to the status quo, to the characters, to the world. Really start hammering in that empathy right from the very get-go, hammering in that empathy. We're going to start the rising action and suspense straight away, and we'll see how that happens in a minute. Then we're going to move off to put the player into Sarah's shoes. So the player plays as Sarah. So this is great because we can now learn with Sarah, we can grow with Sarah, we can understand what's going on, we can feel via Sarah. So she'll be infecting us with her emotions. Her emotions will be leaking through to us. So this is the inciting instant, and this is the outbreak coming. Everyone's got to get out of there, they leave home, and then we're going to take hold of the reins, and we're going to be on rails into town, all vicariously through Sarah. Now, Sarah's going to die here. And you can imagine the experience would be significantly different if we were playing as and with Sarah at the moment of her death. So we have to find a logical, authentic way of swapping between playing as Sarah and playing as Joel. We want to finish in Joel's perspective. We want to see Sarah's death, feel Sarah's death from Joel's point of view, and then just leave him hanging there with an open-ended structure, ready to go into the main story. And he'll carry his grief with him, and that's the thing he's going to overcome. So, car crash, woo, smash in poor Sarah's leg, and Joel becomes the great protector, carrying her into the jaws of hell, to chaos. We're going to use Tommy for several functions. He's going to be a little white rabbit, our guide around the town. And he's going to be saving us when all hope is apparently lost. So he's got a few functions in there as well, through to the end. So we can look at this and go, yeah, okay, that's good. We play it from there to there, a rising action. So let's start doing this. Also, we've got to think about the structure of fear. Now I'm using the Blake and Bailey structural form here. I really, really like this structural form, mainly because the terminology is consistent amongst the greatest horror writers. They refer to unease, dread, terror, horror, disgust. Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft and Orson Scott Card, John Carpenter, they use these terminologies. So I really like the Blake and Bailey structural form here. Disgust is entirely optional. I think of disgust as the sort of salt of ingredient of emotions. A little bit of disgust works in pretty much everything, from the Star Wars movies to Jurassic Park through to your gore, horror, slasher movies. That can go anywhere. So we can pull that out for now. We'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But it's this unease, dread, terror, and horror that we're going to be structuring. We're going to be layering that onto our rising action. So unease is that sort of walking vicariously or otherwise through a dark house, and it's the creaky floorboards, and it's the wind howling outside, the rain lashing upon the windows, and the strobing effects of a lightning. So it's that sense of something's not right here, something bad might happen. There's a lot of ambiguity. So this is kind of like an ambiguity of danger. Then we move into, and this is very special. Dread is kind of optional, but a lot of horror writers believe that dread is the thing that sets a good horror writer apart from a poor horror writer. Dread is that moment where, a liminal moment, just as the ambiguity is removed. It's that moment you're going through that haunted house and you're on edge, you're in the unease stage, and then a head comes out from behind a doorway when you're walking through a dark forest, and then a twig snaps right behind you. So it's a beautiful little tiny moment where you know the bad thing is just about to happen. If you want to see a masterclass in dread, watch The Ballad of Buster Scruggs on Netflix. Sort of 5 or 6 little sort of Western vignettes, the Coen brothers. And most of those vignettes have a very clear and defined moment of dread. Masterclass. It really is very special, and we're going to see double dread in this structural form. So ambiguity then gets removed. We're into terror now. Terror is teeth and jaws and blood and knives and explosions and gunshots. It's that sort of crazed, everything's happening at once, not sure what's going on. It's actually happening now. You're in the moment. The bad thing is happening. And then horror is that reflection. It's that moment where you look down and your family is lying dead on the floor and you've got an arm missing and a knife in your chest. So it's that reflection upon what's just happened. So it's this movement from ambiguity, and then kind of ambiguity, the rug of ambiguity is pulled out from beneath you and you go into the terror. And then finally, that horrific reflection. And just think about what we just watched. You'll see all of that running through. We've discussed being peppered in as and when you like. And of course, it's a game, so we've got to think about agency. So we have this particular structural form. We've got a few structural forms we can use. This is the string of pearls model. I really like the string of pearls model. It looks like this. So there's a pearl on a string and a pearl on a string and a pearl on a string. And this is essentially the movement between giving the player space to sort of co-author their experience. That's the pearl. There's a little bit of room within that pearl to mooch around and make their mark on the world and really feel like they belong in the world. And then there are moments where we take control, and that's the string. That's the tightly plotted bits where we say this has to happen now. So we take back the authorial control. So you can think of this movement from the pearls to the string and to the pearls as this movement to shift of authorial control. There are problems associated with this. So in the pearl, for example, the momentum is defined by the player. So the player could, if they wanted to, they could explore upstairs for 7 weeks. And that's going to kind of damage our story, innit? It's going to ruin the experience we were after. Now, if you think back to Roger Caluari described sort of spectrum of players from the ludus to the paidia, ludus meaning game, paidia meaning play. Essentially, we have the players sort of a ludus end want the optimal experience. They want to seek out the experience that they think the designer has laid out for them. So they'll play in accordance with what they think, in the way they think the designer wants them to play, seeking out the optimal experience. And then you get your paidia players who sort of not interested in that. They're the ones who look for opportunities for speed running and breaking levels. And also sandboxes will give them opportunities for emergent gameplay, that kind of thing. So what we're going to find with a narrative-driven experience, the players are coming in for a narrative-driven experience. They tend to be much more down the ludus end and much more interested in our proposed experience. They want to squeeze every atom of loveliness and emotion from that. So you do find, I can't think of any exceptions, you do find players who are going to, in a narrative-driven experience, play as they think you want them to play. So they're not going to hang around. They're going to do a little bit of upstairs, a little bit downstairs. We're going to take the reins. We're going to keep the momentum going now because we've got to really keep that pace up as we go into the terror. We've taken away the unease, take away the ambiguity going into terror. So we're going to take back the reins of control the momentum. So on rails car journey. And then we're going to push the player now vicariously through the city with a zombie pursuit. So if the player leaves Joel standing still, a zombie comes in, and then there's a reset here, and off we go again. And again, it's very illusory. It looks as though you have the facility to explore and mooch around in this city, but actually there's lots of techniques going on, forcing the player, guiding the ludus player certain paths down certain avenues. So it's very illusory. This little string here, it's a little bit artificial. You can imagine the upstairs and the downstairs all in a single pearl. I'll explain why I put that as a string in a moment when we reach that point. Okay, and then of course taking back the reins in the last few moments, and Sarah dies. And there's quite a lot of things we have to think about when we're just designing the structural form of an interactive experience, especially one with sort of the fears and the tears like we have here. Right, okay, here's our opening. We're going to introduce the player to Joel and to Sarah, and we're going to really hammer home that empathy work. But you can see there's some suggestion that the rising action has already begun there. I think that's really interesting. This is an example of element design. There's two emotions clashing, not clashing, working harmoniously here simultaneously. If you remember, I've had to monkey with a contrast here, but if you remember right at the beginning, we had these virus particles, yeah? There's two things happening there. There's the emotion of disgust, and then this very special emotion, sparkly, shiny wonder, I call it. It's really hard to find any proper research into this. But disgust is, if you think of fear as an emotion designed to protect us from danger from the outside, disgust is an emotion designed to protect us from danger inside. Okay, so it protects us from putting bad, harmful things into our mouths, going into our bodies. So that's kind of a disgust emotion, pathogens and viruses and worms and grubs and things that, could do bad things once inside you. So like a fear of infection. So that's kind of the disgust emotion. There's all sorts of variations and nuances on disgust. If you're interested in that, these are disgust scholars. I do recommend checking these guys out. So it's Valerie Curtis, Paul Rosin, Jonathan Haidt, and Professor Paul Ekman. If you've not read Professor Paul Ekman's Emotions Revealed, it really is the place to start. Yeah, he's got a lot of gaming and sporting emotions in here as well, like Fiero, triumphant, yes, pride. I just beat level 6. So that's further reading if you're interested. So those virus particles are cueing us into disgust already. So that is a threat. So we could argue that the rising action has already begun. And this is something else. This is really, really special. This is sparkly, shiny wonder. It's like catnip, sparkly things like catnip for humans. We're mesmerized by sparkly, shiny things. And the problem here is there's a ton of research into why we might be interested in, fascinated by lights. Some research into changing environment, they signal a change in an environment. I've seen research into why we like fireworks. But actually, the subset of sparkly, shiny things that I observe and can design for, so things I observe in games and movies. So sort of, if you think of James Bond's entry into Macau, you've got I think it's Skyfall, you've got the fireworks, you've got the Chinese lanterns, the reflection of the lanterns, the fairy lamps. If you think of Yondu's funeral in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, well, do check it out. I mean, it's sparkly, shiny galore, it's epic, sparkly, shiny. But even like if you think of 1917, when I think it was Private Schofield floated down a river, we got all the cherry blossoms or apple blossoms falling around. It was like a visual noise. Snow as well. These are all very fascinating things to us. And there's a growing body of research that kind of does group this subset of sparkly, shiny things together and suggests a reason for it. Evolutionarily speaking, it has been in our interest to locate fresh drinking water. And that's what all of these things have in common. It's this impression of light playing upon the surface of water. So it's beautiful. It's a really nice technique, and it's very similar to the childlike wonder response, which is like a need for accommodation, but we won't really go into that now. But just know that this is one of the easiest ways to kind of mesmerize a player. So those two things are happening hand in hand in the first couple of seconds. Straight away, mesmerizing the player and setting up that threat cue. And also, if you listen to players who've never played the game, they know nothing about the game. The Last of Us, is it an apocalyptic story? So they're already The Last of Us, thinking in terms of bad things are going to happen. So you can very easily argue that the rising action has begun straight away, that anticipation of a dreadful, awful outcome. Well, it's those who are left after whatever happened. So this is kind of what suspense is. It's that curiosity, that mesmerization, that fascination, but with concern. That's what separates it from mystery, that concern component. So I argue that the rising action has begun, and I think there's plenty of evidence to suggest that. But actually, if you wanted to draw the rising action more accurately, it would be a bit more flatliney here, and then it would really start to rocket. So it's not kind of a steady line like this. but it's enough to get us in that, so I call it a suspense bubble, to cocoon us in this sense of threat. And now we go into the cinematic. Right, welcome to our world. This is a diegesis. So this is the narrative of the world. These are the characters. This is going to give the player a sense of when, where, how. So even cues like hairstyles, makeup, accessories, clothing, furniture, all these things are cueing the player into the diegesis, grounding the player, orienting the player, giving them a sense of when and where and how. Really interesting watching the elders reacting to this. They seemed to be a lot more eager to try and find clues as to precisely where they were. I thought that was kind of interesting. It was like they needed help entering the diegesis, or there was something stopping them from willingly immersing themselves into the game. I just thought that was interesting. Here's a player who created an identification straight away. We've got the literal ticking clock. That's the countdown. That's what suspense is. Suspense is a literal or non-literal countdown. It's a good way of thinking about it. One player says she goes to bed with her eyelashes on. That's a typical teenager. And you're going to see these kind of reactions all the way through the next couple of minutes. Players identifying. And the camera moves around, and we're going to get some more furniture. Got some curtains there. And to hear the name Tommy, we've got some curtains. We've got the electricity, floorboards across. We go to Joel, and there we are. So we've started to ground ourselves here. So this rising action, the emotions we're interested in a narrative-driven experience are largely coming from characters. The characters give us access to specific sets of emotions. If you think about real people, how we can respond and derive emotions from real people, you've got everything from love to hate. So these aren't the fun emotions. These aren't sort of competition and beating on our score. It's another set of emotions, and it's a big set of emotions as well. Everything from love to hatred, all in between and around. Okay, so that's, we're going to plot those onto the rising action, and they're just going to be these little vicarious points of access to these emotions, like little cars riding along a roller coaster. And that's what characters are. They're pretend or substitute humans. Yeah. Vicarious. So we receive the emotions vicariously, and that comes from the Latin vicarious, meaning substitute. So we are feeling substitute emotions. Of course, there's always a part of the brain that's aware that we are engaging in an entertainment experience here. So we don't feel an exact copy of what that emotion might be. We're feeling sort of variations on it, in the knowledge that no one's actually harmed, no one's actually dead. They're just characters. It's all make-believe. There we go. So here's our characters now, our pretend people. Here's our real people. And to make these faces happen, we need to do that, and we need to do that. That is empathy. We need to bond the real peoples to the pretend peoples via these empathy pipelines, these channels of empathy. Absolutely critical. You don't do that, you don't get cry. So we've got to really fatten these pipes of empathy as well, make them as robust and as fat as we can, so the emotions can just flood through from these pretend people into the real people. So there are various parts of empathy. In designing for empathy, we need to first create identification, and make the characters relatable, so we can accept them, so we can understand their thoughts and feelings, and then start to feel them too. So we need to give them human qualities. That's anthropomorphization, characteristics, speech, looks. Just turn them into something that we can look at this mosaic of pixels and then use Gestalt theory to make it into a character. And we make them individual as well, make them unique individual characters. Pretend peoples. So we can hear players responding to this. There's this regular home, father and daughter, father home from work. Hopefully, if you look at this little list, Hopefully there's nothing there that's going to alienate you from this diegesis, from these characters. You can go, oh yeah, I know what it's like to be in a relationship with a child, or maybe you're a parent, or maybe you remember when your parent maybe carried you to bed and be watching TV when you were young with one or both of your parents. Hopefully it's all very relatable, and it's grounding you into this world. Now, you've got to think about this empathy also not just happening between pretend people and the real people, but also we're going to be perceiving the empathy between those pretend people as characters as well. We'll see why that's important in a minute, but that makes them more empathetic to us. So we see their pranks and bants, we get a sense of their relationship. Joel pretends his watch is broken. Listen to your players. One player says that's a typical dad joke. Sarah jokes that she sells hardcore drugs. One player remarked, that's something I would say to my mum. And then they're joking about the mortgage as well. So you can straight away, just seconds in, you can straight away hear that players are beginning to bond, to relate to and identify with these two characters. We're introduced to Sarah as honey baby girl. I like that. That's much more intimate rather than Joel calling her Sarah. And we don't actually learn Sarah's name for a couple of minutes, but that helps with identification. Concern's important as well. Our characters need to suffer and struggle in this sort of narrative structure. It's important that we are able to go, oh, they're in pain, to recognize, identify their pain, but also to see that they are proactive in trying to resolve that pain, that they don't just sit around and whine and whinge and complain. So it's important that they suffer and also they struggle. So straight away comes Joel. He's worried about losing his job. He's tired, late home from work. And again, hopefully this is all very relatable to us as well. Worried about his daughter being up late, worried about his mortgage payments. I don't know about you guys, when I first went into this, I kind of, one of the questions I was asking myself is, what happened to the mother, wife? Is she still around if something awful happened to her? So I kind of factored that in to the concern as well. And then into the compassion, the altruism. So we see the old gift ploy. Watch out for the old gift ploy. It's one of the ways in which we can demonstrate that a character cares about others, has empathy for others, doesn't regard himself as the center of the universe. So here we go. Sarah's giving the old gift of a watch to Joel for his birthday. Listen to your players. Oh, isn't that sweet? It's a very sweet, thoughtful daughter. And we need to see too that Joel is compassionate, thinks about others, carries Sarah to bed, listen to the player. He used that word sweet. It's kind of curious to me. Oh, that's sweet. It's almost like we're moving into the world of cute here, in the squee response, in response to things that are cute. My mum used to do that to me all the time, said another player. So you can see straight away we've got the identification, the concern, and we're picking up on the compassionate caretaking as well. So that empathy pipeline is already in place. We're identifying with others and we're going to start to feel with others. Now this is a little hiccup. This is really odd design choice. Why a watch of all things? Because when a 12-year-old girl gives a watch to her father, the question then has to be answered. How the heck has she managed to afford this watch? It's a very peculiar choice. Normally when you're demonstrating some sort of compassion or altruism within a character, we tend to think in terms of sacrifice. How much time, effort, what do they sacrifice? And that's kind of how the value of that gift increases, grows. It's the sort of amount of sacrifice that went into it. So if we understood that Sarah's been saving her pocket money for 6 months, has been running errands for the neighbors. Maybe she's been working night shifts in a sewage farm. I don't know, really suffering, where that came from. Discussed suffering and struggling. A lot of herself, making sacrifice, a lot of herself goes into that gift of a watch. It's really, really curious. So why a watch? Well, because the devs are working backwards here. They've got an end game and they're trying to crowbar it in as a gift at this point. So it's a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit clumsy, and they've now got to explain it away. You can't leave that question lingering. And they do so in a very sort of cursory manner. How did you afford this hardcore drugs. Yeah, and then we all move on. So we never really clearly answer it. But this is why I watch. It becomes a release object. You can think of a Horcrux in Harry Potter. It's going to be the thing that contains Sarah's life, her death, her soul, and then Joel's going to carry it with him through the main game. I first heard of release objects when I read Uta Hagen's Respect for Acting, and I keep seeing it come up since. You can think of, I don't know if any of you are performers, if you do performances on stage. I have never done that. I can only imagine how hard it must be night after night to step up onto that stage and the click of our fingers go into tears, sorrow, grief in a kind of believable, authentic way, laughter, joy, elation, anger, rage. I mean, I can't really imagine how hard that is. And Uta Hagen describes the release object as a little technique that actors use, whereby they attach very powerful emotional memories to a thing. That thing could be anything. It could be a watch. It could be a memory. It could be a smell. It could be anything. So they can then bring back that release object on stage and then feel the emotions assigned to it, sort of attached to it. Uta referred to an example of imagine that your partner has just left you, just walked out the door. And it's high emotion and sort of the trauma of that, grief and sorrow assigned to that. And then maybe the smell of their scent just after they've gone, and that smell can then bring back the emotional memory, that trauma of them leaving, that sorrow. So once upon the stage, the actor can, mentally recall that smell, and it connects to the emotions, and then you can recreate those emotions. It's actually written much about in neuro-linguistic programming as well. It's referred to anchoring, and as a technique we can apparently all use. I've tried it before. It's sort of managed to just about get it to work, but we can regress to a really, really happy memory, the happiest memory we can think of, close our eyes, and then we just put ourselves into that moment, into that joyful experience, and we make that memory technicolor, raise the color, the brightness, the contrast, raise the volume, make it loud, really immerse ourselves into this memory, into this experience, and really feel it deeply. And once we're there, we can then anchor that to an action. And the action, one of the actions they suggest is that you do a sort of thumb against forefinger. So you can actually start to anchor that strong emotion to an action. And if you rehearse this enough, and if you can really get to the depths, into the heart of that emotional experience and get a strong anchoring, you can, when next time you're in a stressful situation, they propose, you can sort of secretly do your little thumb finger thing under your table or under your chair, and it will bring back that emotion. So yeah, it's written about quite a lot, but that's what's going on here. So now we've got Sarah's soul and all that is associated with her life and her death, and Joel's suffering and his grief, visible at all times and whenever we like. We can turn to our art team and say, okay, art team, make sure Joel's sleeves are rolled up now, because we want to remind the player of everything that Sarah meant to him. And of course, when we get to the very final scene, there he is stroking his release object. That sounds quite rude. There he is stroking his watch as he deals with his grief via his surrogate daughter, Ellie. And he resolves his pain. It's a really beautiful technique. You'll probably see it quite a lot now in games and movies. Okay, so identification, concern, and that sort of altruism and compassion. And these are actually, as it happens, the processes that happen within us during empathy. And we'll go through them one by one really briefly. Won't go too in depth. But this is how empathy works. So we have these dual systems in the brain, the mirror neuron system and the mentalizing system. And they utilize different parts of the brain, which means that they can work as an integrated system. They can work synchronously. So they do. I think it's Marco Iacoboni, neuroscientists referred to them as an integrated system. So they're not sort of separate things. They kind of work differently, but they're very much sort of intertwined. And these allow us to understand another's experience. Yeah, this is the cognitive empathy or mind reading part. So the mirror neurons are picking up on little gestures. They were discovered in the 90s, so it's fairly recent discovery. It was a shock. It was a shock to researchers. They were identified by looking at the mirror neurons in monkeys' brains, and these mirror neurons lit up when a monkey performed an action. But curiously, this really blew the minds of the researchers and took them years to really accept. They also lit up when the monkey watched an action, saw an action being performed. That's really curious, hence the mirroring. So they are, when we see a gesture, this is kind of low-level stuff, low-level gesture, a movement, our mirror neurons emulate that movement in our brains, as though we were actually performing that action too. It's the most incredible thing. So you think about how you can just look at a person and instantly get a sense of what they're thinking and feeling just by movements. And this could be movements in the face, muscles, smiles, frowns, body language, picking up all these cues to figure out what a person's thinking and feeling. That's the mirror neuron system. It's incredible. And there's still a lot of research going into this. So we might see a hand doing this movement, if you see that, reaching out for a light switch. There's some context happening in the mirror neurons. I think most of the context is happening in the mentalizing system. So the mirror neurons will help us to figure out, we'll model action, and we'll go, person's reaching, intent is to flick a light switch, turn a light on. And the mentalizing system helps us to figure out why, put ourselves into that person's shoes, brings in a lot more context. Mentalizing system goes, okay, a person's turning on a light switch. Why might they be doing that? Well, it looks to me like they've just had a nightmare. They've just woken up and they want to turn the light on because they're scared. So these two systems working together, the mirror neuron system and the mentalizing system, allow us to figure out what a person's thinking and feeling, why they might be thinking and feeling that way, and what their intent is. What might they be doing next? So having figured that out, we actually undergo physiological changes. This is the second dimension or stage of empathy. This is where we see activity in the social pain and pleasure systems. And we actually undergo our autonomic nervous system undergoes change. Our heartbeats synchronize with the target. Incredible. Hormonal activity synchronizes with that of the target. Pupil dilation synchronizes, blush responses synchronizes, eye gaze synchronizes as well. So we're actually modeling these things in our head, feeling a physiological response, and then that modeling actually happens. So we smile, we cry, we frown, and we feel it. So we visibly express, mirror what we think is going on, and we feel it too. And we call it emotional contagion or effect matching. Amazing stuff, really, when you think about it. Now, what's the end game of empathy? That's an interesting question. So finally, we see activity in this tiny part of the brain called the septal area. And we've known for a while the septal area is involved in fear regulation. It's a part of a pleasure system, so it gives us nice, happy neurochemicals. And it's involved in maternal caregiving. When you see rats with lesions in the septal area, they suddenly become really bad parents, and they neglect their young, and they produce less milk. So all these things kind of come together to force us or to inveigle us into taking an action. So having figured out what a person might be thinking and feeling, and then experienced a form of that, a vicarious form of that ourselves, we are now compelled to do something to alleviate that suffering, compassionate empathy. In other words, those three parts, functions of a septal area come together so that we don't run away when a baby cries, and we are rewarded for taking care of it. Compassion. And compassion is really important. I was chatting with one of the psychology lecturers here at University of Suffolk during the summer. He's an expert in empathy. And he was telling me how utterly critical trust is. So compassion tells us or suggests to us when we see compassionate activity in another that they are worthy of our trust, and then we sort of let our guard down and open up the floodgates to empathy and to their emotions. So that's how kind of compassion is compelling us into trusting another. And when you read accounts, there's many of them, of high-functioning, manipulative psychopaths, high in trait psychopathy. Their mirror neurons are typically either absent or damaged or misfiring. So the whole world to them is actions without meaning. You don't know what these people are thinking or feeling, and if they're manipulative, they will practice these for many hours in front of a mirror, trying to get this sort of a Duchenne smile, get the authentic smile, and they will try and convince their victim that they are compassionate. And it's an act, and they learn to engender that trust in the victim by suggesting that they care about them and that they understand them. Actually, they don't, and they haven't got a clue what's going on in that person's brain. So trust is coming out of his compassion, is tied in with his compassion, which is why it's very important. It helps us to more strongly empathize. So, okay, so this is what we're doing. And you know this, you walk into a room and you see a person for the first time and you instantly get a feel about them, yeah? And that's your identification. That's your cognitive empathy, picking up on all these cues. And if you think about it, spoken language is very new in sort of the evolution of Homo sapiens, very new. Most of our existence has been one of communication via non-verbal cues. I think it's Professor Albert Moravian who suggested that something like 95% of all communication occurs non-verbally. So this is what we're seeing here. We're seeing these actions, these expressions, these gestures. So we are picking up verbal cues from Joel and Sarah, but we're picking up a heck of a lot more non-verbals. Non-verbals is a fascinating topic. It contains all sorts of little subsections, facial expressions. Remember, these are movements again. So the mirror neurons are sort of emulating these movements, and then we can express them as well and physiologically feel them. So actors will obviously practice these expressions. So we're getting cues from facial expressions. Fear is a good one. I like fear. One of the things about fear, one of the cues from fear is the exposed sclera, the whites of the eyes. The theory being that when someone is experiencing fear, we are more easily able to identify where they're looking, where they think the threat is, hence the exposed sclera. Stanley Kubrick sort of hijacked the exposed sclera. It's called you can look it up if you don't know of it. It's the Kubrick stare. So he had his characters facing just beneath the camera, and then he'd get them to look up at the camera, and he would sort of smile of derangement. It's quite good, isn't it? It's quite powerful. So it would trigger an amygdala, we'll talk about this later on, into a fear response, but from a sort of not a fear expression, but from an expression of derangement. So you got, of course, Jack Nicholson in The Shining, Private Pile, and Alex from Clockwork Orange. It's good, isn't it? The old Kubrick stare. So these are all triggering things in us. And you're doing it as well. As you walk around day to day, you're leaking emotions. You're infecting all those around you with sadness or happiness. The body language, of course. So we're going to have, this is where we're not very sure of ourselves. This is where we're protecting the main arteries under our arms and protecting the arteries under our neck and our vital organs, self-focusing. We're making ourselves into a smaller target. And then suddenly, there you go, have at my organs. Feel free to help yourself to my organs. I'm confident. Yeah, it's body language. Paralinguistics is a study of sort of the meaning beneath the superficial meaning of the words. So it seems like tone of voice, when I'm speaking loudly and confidently and enunciating, or whether I'm quite so sure. Whether I want to finish a sentence with a hi or hello. If I want to leave pauses, these are all cues in how a person's thinking and feeling. Of course they are, and these are things that interrogators and interviewers trained to spot, to pick up on all these nonverbals. And my favorite nonverbal of all, proxemics. Shakespeare gave advice to would-be screenwriters. He said, always design with emotional space. You refer to it as the emotional space. Now we refer to it as the science of proxemics. Check out Edward T. Hall. There's a space between people. You think about, a stranger entering into your intimate zone. And I've known people like this, and they get face to face with you, and you don't know them that well. And it's really disconcerting. It's a bit creepy. Yeah. Someone you love, do come into my intimate zone. Give me a hug. That's great. There's cultural differences, of course, to this as well. But it's such a powerful component of nonverbals. Two of the greatest games of all time have this movement of proxemics built into the very core mechanics. You've got Journey and Eco. You think of Journey, and the player characters come together into the intimate zone to share each other's body heat, which powers them up for flight. You think of Eco, the boy and the Order holding hands. Oh, so beautiful. And it's this ebb and flow of proxemic space throughout the entirety of the game, where the boy goes off to remove an obstruction or to solve a puzzle, and the Order's vulnerable to the attacks from the demons, and then you come back together again. Absolutely bloody beautiful. Really important. So we're getting towards the halfway point now. We're getting towards our coffee break. So I've sort of separated proxemics out from the nonverbal cues, but actually it is part of nonverbal communication. So look what's going on here. Look, so we've got intimacy growing down the arm. So sensitivity grows down the arm. Yeah, nothing too sensitive up there. You can go up to a stranger in a pub, give them a little tap there. You right, mate? Yeah, you look cool with that. You don't want to go up to a stranger in a pub and take their hand. That probably isn't going to end well. So that's something we reserve, very sensitive fingertips. So we reserve that sort of movement down the arm, where it becomes more intimate for those that we are intimate with, who are part of our family. So we've got the touch, we've got the exaggerated eye gaze, eye contact there as well. Oh, wonderful. Joel carrying Sarah to bed. The non-diegetic music begins here. And then the face touching, we call it allo grooming, sort of caring for another, really intimate. Compare that to the final few moments of the prologue, where Joel carries her to a death, face-to-face touching. Now that's not an accident. That's really, really beautiful. The context. Oh, I'm choking already. Context is completely reversed there. Okay, so that's the analysis of the first 2 minutes. We had to introduce quite a few concepts there and go into a little bit of psychology. We'll pick up speed for the remainder of the session. I've got no idea what time it is, I'm about to discover. So what we're going to do now, I need a little moment and another coffee. We're going to have a 7 or 8 minute break. Go and grab a coffee. Go and splash some water on your face if you like. Here's your opportunity to throw any comments, any ideas, thoughts, questions into chat. I'm going to go away. I'll be back in about 7 or 8 minutes. Okay. And I'll go through your questions or comments, and then we'll have a little 10-minute Q&A session, and then we'll storm through the remaining 13 or so minutes, 12.5 minutes of the prologue. Okay. So I'll see you in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Tommy, listen to me. He is the contractor. He's the contractor, okay? I can't lose this job. I understand. Let's talk about this in the morning, okay? We'll talk about it in the morning. All right, good night.
Hey.
Scoot.
Fun day at work, huh?
What are you still doing up? It's late.
Oh, crud, what time is it?
It's way past your
But
bedtime.
it's still today.
Honey, please not right now. I do not have the energy for this.
Here,
What's this?
your birthday? You kept complaining about your broken watch. So I figured, you know. You like it?
Honey, this is... It's
What?
nice, but I think it's stuck. It's not...
What? No. Oh, ha ha.
Where did you get the money for this?
Drugs. I sell hardcore drugs.
Oh, good. You started helping out with the mortgage then.
Yeah, you wish.
Good night, baby girl.
Hello?
Sarah, honey, I need to get your daddy on the phone.
Uncle Tommy, what time
I
is
need
it?
to talk to your dad now. There's something...
Uncle Tommy? Hello? What was that all about? Dad? Daddy? You in here?
The riots seem to be somehow connected to the nationwide
Where the heck are
pandemic.
you?
We've received reports that victims afflicted with the infection show signs of increased aggression and
Move everybody out of here now. There's a gas leak. Hey, move!
there seems to be
Get
some
out of
commotion
here.
coming from
Let's get the hell out of here, right?
What was that? Dad? Dad? What is going on? There's his phone. Eight missed calls. Where the hell are you? Call me on my way. There you are.
Sarah, are you okay?
Yeah?
Does anyone come in here?
No, who would come in here?
Don't go near the doors. Just stand back there.
Dad, you're kind of freaking me out. What's going on?
It's the Coopers. Something ain't right with them. I think they're sick.
What kind of sick?
Jimmy!
Dad?
Honey, come here. Come here. Jimmy! Jimmy, stay back! Jimmy, I am warning you. Don't!
You shot him.
Sarah,
I saw him this morning.
listen to me. There is something bad going on. And we have got to get out of here. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Tell me, come on. Come on.
Where the hell you been?
Hello, right, we're back. Oh, right. Well, it's hard, isn't it? It's hard watching these things, these emotive things. So have a little look at the comments. Adrian, hello, Adrian. How are you doing, Adrian? Lovely to have you with us. Music plays a huge role in reinforcing the feelings. What were the other choices for the theme, and why do you think this one fit better than others? I have two things maybe to say about the music. I mean, we're going to discuss in particular the effect of sound choices. The effect of sound choices on the amygdala for creating fear. So we'll be going into the fear in a moment. I mean, my knowledge of music is very limited in games. Beyond, make sure you've got a really good sound guy you work with. The diegetic guitar I thought was really interesting. Sort of didn't belong in the narrative of a game. If you play The Last of Us 2, it becomes a diegetic guitar. So Joe was actually playing the guitar in the game, and we're gonna go into that deep droning chord. It might be just a sustained note in the next part, and that's going to take us all the way through the On Rails journey. I mean, if you speak to a designer of scary games, they will unanimously tell you that the sound is more scary, more important to the emotions than the visuals. They will uniformly, as far as I'm aware, tell you this. You can look at, I mean, I was going to bring this up later on. Glenn Schofield, creative director of Dead Space, did a really fascinating experiment where they measured very little fear response when participants watched a walkthrough without the sound, compared to very strong fear responses when participants saw nothing and just listened to the sound of the walkthrough. I thought it was really fascinating. Akira Yamaoka, the sound designer of Silent Hill, tons of stuff he's written about. He's done some really good essays on sound design, but mainly specifically for horror games or scary games, but possibly other games as well. I definitely recommend checking him out. He's written extensively about this, how he was very interested in subverting expectations. Short answer, critical, absolutely critical. My knowledge really of sound really extends no further than scary games. But I mean, the games I've designed that were designed sort of relaxing experience for the middle-aged female demographic. Our sound guy would create these wonderful ambient, sweeping, therapeutic kind of background sounds, soundscapes, and players picked up on that. But you know, I have to say, I've always thought the sound folks were always the sort of the underdogs, always the unsung heroes, when in fact they're actually shouldering a heck of a lot of the burden in the emotional responses. So hopefully that's some sort of answer. So much discussed with Arthur. How essential is it to implement all of these theory aspects into the storyboard properly? Well, I mean, the storyboard's one way. I mean, it's just a tool, isn't it? However you capture and communicate your requirements is entirely up to you. You can do it with storyboards. I have used storyboards in the past. I've created them only really as guides for myself when we get to the photo shoots, and I just bring them all out so I can position characters how I want them and feed all this through visually to the photographer. But one of the things we do as designers is it doesn't matter how you might be a good artist, you might be a poor artist, makes no difference. You have to figure out whatever way is best for you to communicate these emotions and these triggers to the rest of your team. That's what we do. I fill sketchbooks with notes and little drawings, and I give those to my team members, and I sit with them and talk through what's going on. Storyboard's fine. It's absolutely fine. Whatever works for you. Yeah, it's cool. You just have to be able to communicate these, assuming that you have designed for these really powerful emotions in the first instance. It's up to you how you communicate them. Use whatever talents you have. We'll do one more. We're a little bit behind, so I can stall through the remainder. It's absolutely fine. And where or when should you think to implement the affordances and signifiers to drive a story and keep the player in the motion of a story? Okay, so the action. So you're talking about bringing the story. I suppose you're talking about interactivity when you're talking about affordances. How and when to get the pace? Cool, that's quite a deep question. I mean, if we think about what's about to happen, the player is simply navigating as Sarah, and there are little cues, aren't there? You can press triangle or square to focus or to interact with this or that. I don't know. I don't think there's an answer to that. I think the answer really would be then, how much involvement, agency do you want from your player? How much do you think they want? Is maybe the first question to ask. If you get a sense of how much they want you to control the experience and how much control they would like to exert upon that experience, that'll probably help you answer the question when you know what they want. Gosh, I hope they were good answers. Okay. Anything else in there? Are we good? Can you build a great product without thoroughly researching your audience? Can you build a great product without thoroughly researching your audience? Is a good story, though. Yeah, well, yes and no. So the AAA way tends to be they tend to have small teams that will do all of the demographics and psychographics and build a list of design principles or pillars. This is what our players love. This is what our players hate. That goes up on the wall throughout development, and you're constantly looking at that as you're designing. Right, they love this. They love cute things. They love scary things, but we don't want any nudity. We don't want any influence to sex or anything like that. And you stick to those throughout. The indie way tends to be, I want to design a game for myself. Okay. Well, that first assumes that you know what it is you want. You can identify precisely the forms of emotions that the triggers of the emotions that you like yourself and what makes them happen. And secondly, that you can actually implement those and design with those to make that experience happen. And you are setting yourself up therefore as a representative of your audience. Now, when I'm thinking of my casual games, I amalgamate them all into a single person in my head. I hang out with them, I go to the forums, I read their comments, I play the games they play, I listen to the music they listen to. I try and get an intimate understanding of them and amalgamate them into this one form, this one humanoid in my head. And I'm constantly thinking of her, would she like this? What would she think about this? If you're designing for yourself, you would now set yourself up as the representative, as that amalgamated form of your entire audience. So you're assuming that there are people like you who like the things you like, which is a very reasonable assumption. In fact, you only need to spend a few minutes looking online to go, oh yeah, there's loads of games like the games I like, so this will be fine. There's a big audience. So you can directly infer from your own enjoyment, things you like, things you dislike, and build a game around that. That's fine, as long as you are identifying your audience either as yourself or as another. It's all cool. That gives you that framework. Otherwise, you're just going to go all over the place, isn't it? You know, you just might as well be throwing leaves in the air and the wind catches them and you've got no idea what's going to happen. You can do that if you like. It's a hell of a risk, and if you're dealing with sums of money, that's a heck of a risk to take. I wouldn't be happy doing that with my money. Righty-ho, should we crack on? Right, so we've got half an hour left. That's okay, that's fine. We've done the biggies. Let's get my PowerPoint up again. And let's crack on. Okay, Alina, if you want to bring us back up. Okay. Right, so we're going into a second stage now. So we're going properly into the rising action now. So this is going to be concerned with that structure of suspense and the structure of fear. We're going to start to raise the stakes as we go into town, and we're going to bond the player to Sarah. So rising action is tension over time, increasing tension over time. Probably the greatest skill you can have as a designer is to be able to sow those seeds into the player's mind of something that you're proposing is likely to happen. That's, it's just like a lovely little magnet that just draws them through the story, draws into whatever game you are making. Doesn't matter which emotions you're drawing upon and hoping to elicit. There are various forms of anticipation, but we're using suspense here, which is curiosity, concern. So upon this rising action, we're going to plot the player into the perspective of Sarah, and she's going to travel along. So we're going to learn with Sarah. So our knowledge is going to be shared, and this is going to help with the mirroring, this sort of unity of understanding and unity of purpose. We're going to interact with the world via Sarah. She's going to become our nexus point of empathy. Player gets to, in that pearl, or those couple of pearls, learn at their own pace at the beginning. And we're going to ramp up that concern. So that's concern of a bad thing about to happen. And we're going to increase that tension by, at the very least, giving the illusion that it's getting closer and closer and closer. The bad thing is getting nearer and nearer. That's your countdown. But we're not stopping on the empathy work. You don't stop all the way through to Sarah's very last words. I don't know if you remember what her last words were before she died. We'll come back to that. But we have to create that empathy and sustain that fat empathy pipe. So we see players identifying with her messy room, her posters, photos of friends and family. So here's the next odd thing. We had the odd watch, and we figured out why the watch was a suitable choice. You're disrupting the empathy, the identification here. A player says, what young girl has a phone in her room? A landline. It is a curious choice. Why a landline? Why not a mobile phone? That wouldn't create a hiccup in the player's acceptance of Sarah and the authenticity of this world. But you can see there's a little bit of a hiccup here. Well, one of the difficult things, and one of the things we spend perhaps most of our time doing as designers, is figuring out ways to plant those seeds of bad things happening. And there's a whole bunch of ways we can do that. We can use a demonstration. That's the old red shirts in Star Trek. How do we know that this is a dangerous alien machine? Send in a couple of red shirts to get blown to pieces. That's bad. So that's now a seed. That thing's bad. We can use the history repeating itself. It's a typical slasher movie. 10 years ago on this very night, a man came in and wiped out everybody at this camp. So it's bad seed. It's going to happen again. We can use, if diegesis is accommodating of supernatural things, we can have the old fortune teller, or Tilly, the neuromancer in Witcher 3. Oh, bad things are going to happen. Oh, the bad people are coming. The whole world's going to blow up, or whatever it might be. It's the asteroid hurtling towards Earth. It's the train heading down the tracks, and we can see that the mudslide has wiped out the tracks. So we spend an awful lot of time thinking of ways of planting these seeds in. So here we're going to use Tommy, who has a knowledge out of the outside world, who knows bad things are happening. He's going to be the one planting the seed into Sarah. But he wouldn't be wanting to do this, would he? He wouldn't want to say, hey, Sarah, hey, bad shit's happening out there. Life's about to end as we know it, but don't worry, you'll be all right. So the landline allows him to pretend to be phoning, hopefully, Joel, but actually getting through to Sarah instead. hence the function of a landline. It's a little bit uncomfortable again because, you know, the question then is, does Tommy not know she's got a landline next to her bed? But it's fine, you know, it's a means to an end. It's a means of seeding that concern. So we are now concerned with Sarah. Phone ringing itself prompts a response. It's like a call to action. So things like knocking at a door, phones ringing, pots boiling on a stove. All these things are like call to action cues. They require a response. They are signaling that something is about to happen and you need to respond to it. So they can cause concern, especially once we've started that rising action. And straight away the phone rings. Oh, this could be bad, says a player, just for my phone ringing. Tom is panicked. Phone call's cut off. One player, oh, that doesn't sound very good. Oh shit. So here we go. That rising action is really growing now. We're planting those seeds of concern in the player's brain, stating our goal. Find your dad. Sarah gets her name. Again, I thought this was I didn't get very many cues from Sarah that she was actually scared yet. Other players didn't too. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you can think she's a bit sleepy. She's just woken up. That's fine. That's okay. Now we're going to play on the amygdalae. So we have two amygdalae. Amygdala from the Latin almond, because these are bundles of nuclei shaped like almonds. We have one in each hemisphere of the brain, in the temporal lobes there and there. They are involved in emotional regulation and memory processing. So they pass off strong emotional experiences to memory, long-term memory. But there's a lot of research happening still on the function of the amygdalae, but we do know that they are little threat detectors. We do know they roll in fear. So they're like constantly go, look, oh, that doesn't look very good. I'm a bit worried about that. Oh, he looks a bit strange. I don't like what he's doing there. Oh God, what's that going on over there? Look, is that coming over here? I don't like that. So they're constantly on alert, little threat radars for bad things. And we can disrupt them. It's called the amygdala hijack. We can hijack the amygdala by suggesting threats and by hampering their threat assessment. So we can add things like darkness and mist and fog, dazzling lights, strobing lights, blurry figures, the old static. Remember Five Nights at Freddy here? Each of those things was used in Alien, by the way. These are things that hold the amygdala and the amygdalae in that state of unease. Like we talked about the unease earlier on. It's like, is that bad? I can't quite see. There's lights in the way, there's mist and fog, and it's a bit dark. And it leaves them in this state of the unknown, which H.P. Lovecraft described as the strongest fear is fear of the unknown. So we're hampering threat assessment in all these ways. And if you think about the mirror neurons picking up on cues, yeah, and modeling those cues, we can de-anthropomorphize. We can remove those cues to again leave the amygdala in that state of unease. Like I can't read that person. I can't read that character. So we have the masks of our evil monsters and villains. That mask there was actually Captain Kirk mask, painted white. Fancy that. There's old Leatherface. He had three masks. He had his killing mask, his old woman mask, and his pretty woman mask. I don't remember those from the film, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So we placing the player into that place where they cannot read his cues. We are disrupting the empathy. We are hampering that assessment. So we're creating confusing signals and removing these non-verbal and verbal. They often don't speak as well. It's grunt, don't they? And this ambiguity of threat is different to actual threat. Someone holding a gun to your head, that's an actual threat. Yeah. But ambiguity of threat creates a sense of creepiness. Now you want to read On the Nature of Creepiness by Francis T. McAndrew and Sarah Kernker. Absolutely brilliant. It's about 15 years old now, I think, but it's still cited routinely in papers. And they define creepiness as that, an ambiguity of threat, and come up with a list of things that people find creepy. all sorts of cool things like people oversharing and wanting sexual interest, long fingers, dirty hair, all of these kind of things become these creepy cues. It's really good. That's all the nature of creepiness. Do check that out. So that's what's happening here. We're hijacking the amygdala, holding them in that state of unease, of anxiety, which are obviously going to topple over into dread and terror and horror at some point. Player is playing third person now. The benefit of third person limited is that we're attached to Sarah, this invisible umbilical cord, but because we're not looking through her eyes, we can actually respond and emulate her cues, her fear cues. Again, we've got distended shadows. And we're playing, there's your affordance. So we're playing as Sarah and she's interacting with the world. You're just drip feeding that progressive disclosure, drip feeding the controls the player has access to. It was really funny watching the old people playing this game. They would push Sarah up against a wall and she'd just be sort of moving around a wall, nose to wall. Bless them. And now we've got to guide the players. So these are our Ludus players, remember. They want to seek out, they want to absorb the designer's experience, the optimal emotive experience. So we're going to give them the illusion of autonomy, but actually guide them with these visually salient cues. I call it an invisible hand. So we're secretly shepherding them towards the ominous light. So we're going to build that concern that's coming from a news report. There's a pandemic, there's an infection, there's an aggression. There's aggression building that rising action, building the tension. And we're doing that threat assessment, hampering again. There's darkness, strobing lights, distended shadows, static interference. So we're creating an unease component of the structure of fear. There's introducing L3, focus button and imminent threat. I think that was meant to be a jump scare. I'm not sure it really worked. And we've got more of those call to action cues, alarms and static and sirens kicking off. And what's actually happening now? Well, there was a threat on the TV, news channel. And now the threat is downtown. Watch how this threat moves in over the next minute and a half or so. And then it's in the street. And then it's outside the house, at the door, inside the house, and right there next to Joel and Sarah. So we're taking this concern, this threat, and we're propelling the player along this rising action. That tension is growing the closer we believe we are to the threat, or the closer we believe that threat is to us. Same thing, really. One interesting way of thinking of suspense is to imagine that as we move through time, opportunities for a good outcome are diminished. Yeah. So imagine Hitchcock's bomb under the table example. Two people sat at the table having a chat. Bomb goes off. That's a surprise. No, says Hitchcock. Move the camera down. Let the audience see the bomb. That's suspense. And you can imagine, even if there's no countdown, there's no explicit timer, you know that as time passes, we are getting closer to the moment that bomb explodes. So there are fewer opportunities to defuse it. And now there are fewer opportunities to get far enough away from that explosion such that we aren't harmed by it. So it's that erosion of possible good outcomes. It's a really good way of thinking of suspense. Restating the goal. Now she's exhibiting fear cues, and now the players are picking up on this. And I'm fine with it. I accept she was sleepy when she woke up. She's really starting to get panicky now. So that's a little string I put in earlier on. And this is something I do a lot as well. It's a really good idea to have a moment where you're not demanding anything, any cognitive problems solving from the player, any particular difficult thought processes. You give them a moment just to reflect, where we're just navigating, just transitioning from here to there. And this is that moment where they can really solidify, oh, this is, yeah, I'm feeling the same thing. I've got the same goals. I understand this character. And it's a good moment just to let them concretize their attachment to this character. And you can actually lead. Hypnotist Scorvis leading and pacing. You can actually lead by having Sarah say what is going on. And 9 times out of 10, your player will go, yeah, what is going on? Good question. and we actually hear those very words from the player. So that's why I put that little artificial string in. And it's something I put into my games as well, just a moment where you're not demanding anything of the player, and it gives them that moment just to strengthen that alignment, that rapport. There we are, threat outside. More fear cues, sirens and flashing lights. You've got another distended, warped figure with distorted and unreadable non-verbals. Sarah's now self-hugging, protecting her organs. We've got the dog yelp. Now, this is that non-linear sound I talked about. It's absolutely a staple of scary experiences. So a non-linear sound is this kind of a sound of an acoustic instrument outside of its normal expected range. And when we talk about an acoustic, like the cellos in Psycho, we talk about an acoustic instrument, we're also included in the voice box. And it's that scream. I was listening to a non-verbal expert, a body language expert last week, discussing this in terms of the primal scream. Now you think of that scream that just goes outside that normal register, goes into that unnatural pitch. And it hits you, and that really hits the amygdala hard, and they respond to that. So these are non-linear sounds that are unexpected. They go beyond what we would normally expect of that sound by changing the pitch, or we can make something suddenly loud or suddenly quiet. And animal distress calls are non-linear sounds too. We exhibit a fear response to those. Right, they're reunited, goal complete, there you are, okay. Let's do some more empathy work. So there's Joel, are you okay? So remind us of his compassion. Seeds, plant seeds of concern into the player's brain. Let's do it, bish, bash, bosh. Has anyone come in here? Don't go near the doors, just stand back there. It's the Coopers, I think they're sick. 4 things you never want to hear. And then finally, the coup de grace, knows his gun. So seed. Bad things are about to happen. Here comes Jimmy. Zombies named. These aren't just monsters. These are people. We are anthropomorphizing them. We're giving them names. This is Jimmy. You see this all the way through. It's really, really well done. And there's another non-linear sound which triggers that startle reflex, that loud smashing of the glass. This is, some theorists believe it's the one fear that is active at birth. In babies, it's called the Moro reflex. It's a startle response, and part of the brainstem, I think called the pons, it cannot inhibit these sudden loud noises, sudden bright lights, sudden changes in light, sudden and unpredictable movements. These things all trigger the brainstem, and that goes straight to the amygdala, and the amygdala goes off in this little panic. Oh my God, what's going on? There's a non-critical path, of course, extra empathy in the card. Should you search Sarah's drawers? Dear Dad, let's see, you're never around, hate the music I'm into. Practically despise the movies I like, and yet somehow you still manage to be the best dad every year. How do you do that? Oh, that's going to add a little bit of empathy and show more compassion from her. You can go into the bathroom, you can get some more knowledge. Texas, got a date there. More concern, intermittent spikes at hospitals. Mysterious infection, contaminated crops, crazed woman killed husband. So these are all adding to the things that we've already started doing. We've got the 8 missed calls on the phone there. More knowledge, 2:15 a.m. No signal, that's isolation. Isolation is good. So we can, you think of the stages of fear, you've got that threat assessment. And then you've got a response, the fight or flight response, as your heart's going, pumping oxygen through your body, priming you for fight or flight. You've got the adrenaline pouring through your body. You've got more acute vision. You've got more acute hearing. Everything is triggering your ANS into fight or flight to prepare you for a response. And so we can hamper the response, and we can do that with tying up characters and incarcerating them. And then we can remove any additional help from elsewhere as well. And that's isolation. That's what we're doing here. As Stephen King said, alone is the most awful word in the English tongue. So you can see this isolation work happening as well. Now we're going on rails. So we are taking firm grasp of the momentum now. So we brought that threat from the TV, downtown, outside, inside there. We realized that threat, and now we're just going to multiply it. We're going to say this threat is happening 10 times, 50 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. So we're going to balloon it now, okay? So really raising the stakes. So now it's half the people in the city are dead and mangled. And the south, and the east, and the west. So it's just ballooning moment by moment. And one player goes, where are they going to go? This looks like it's happening all over. So there's opportunities for safe, for good outcome are being diminished second by second as we hurtle along this rising action. There's isolation, there's no cell phone, there's no radio. There's paranoia, are we sick? There's another named victim. It's not a farm, it's Lewis's farm. Poor Lewis. All this empathy, all this compassion. We've got to do a bit of bonding with Tommy, not an awful lot. He reveals his compassion. I hope that son of a bitch made it out. And this leads to this really, I absolutely love this wonderful conflict of compassion. Don't worry so much about Tommy, but look at how the compassion of Joel is different to the compassion of Sarah. Joel is the parent, and the focus of his compassion is his offspring, is Sarah. They got a kid, Joel. So do we. So Tommy wants to save everybody. Joel wants to save Sarah. And that conflict, Sarah wants to save everybody. We should have helped. That's a really interesting choice that these characters are making, which is revealing something about them. And this is something we call empathy bias. Now there's this wonderful, what does it mean to be like me? There's this wonderful argument that rages. On the one side, we have the folks who think that empathy is a bad thing. Empathy, to be like me, empathy is inherently racist, it's sexist, it's classist, it's all the ists. Yeah, we identify with those like us. We see it at sports matches. Is a football match. I'm empathizing with my team, and that team's empathizing amongst themselves, and then between them, it's just hostility, anti-empathy. So that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument, you hear this a lot from therapists, is that, well, stop looking for the differences and instead focus on the similarities. Look beyond the color of someone's skin, look beyond their gender, look beyond the amount of money they have or don't have, and look at who they actually are, find those commonalities. There's plenty of really interesting arguments online about empathy bias. So what we do is we design character, not characterization. Okay, characterization is superficial. That's the outside. We're interested in the heart, the soul, the very essence of that person, that pretend person. As Robert McKee put it, true character is revealed in the choices a human being makes under pressure. So we're revealing to the player who these characters truly are inside by making them face up to difficult choices under pressure, high stakes. And difficult choices reveal the true character. Or as the screenwriter Aaron Sorkin put it in an interview, designing characteristics absolutely comes last, if it comes at all. He likened it to Mr. Potato Head, a potato sticking on the hat and eyes. They're just characteristics. So, and that's a great thing about being a writer, is that you're always thinking about who we really are beneath the skin. We very quickly, quite easily, learn to see beneath the superficial qualities and dig into the moral center. And really interestingly, players almost unanimously are siding with Joel. Listen to them, keep driving. It's every man for himself, survival of the fittest, and it's the apocalypse. And this player justified this kind of thought process, seeing as how he had just had to shoot his neighbor in the face. I probably wouldn't have stopped. So he's justifying Joel's command here. Keep driving, keep going, I've got to look after Sarah. And this player is putting themselves, mentalizing and putting themselves into the shoes of Joel. And now we've got a visual representation of the size of this threat, all of these people, this massive exodus. And again, You can hear the players now, they're really starting to get agitated as we go into the belly of the beast. Let's go, drive away, drive away. And here we are heading into all these, again, planting the seeds, all these people running away from a place over there. So let's go to that place over there. The closer we get, the more tension. We're using short, snappy dialogue. It's getting a bit fruity now. One player said, this language is not the best. Well, but they are very excited. So we're using short, snappy dialogue. Into town we go. We're going to break her leg. Poor Sarah's leg gets broken. Never non-linear sound. Most players jump at that point. We're going to bond the player straight away to Joel by having them both perform an action simultaneously. So the player is now involved in this breaking of the glass and escaping from the car. Oh, sparkly shiny wonder. We're going to have the chaos now. We're going into the terror. Explosions, bangs, fires, let's say fireworks, but a kind of effect of fireworks there, and screams. Listen to all the screams, and the pops and the gargles, and oh my gods. Here we are hurtling now through this terror. Just got to remind, because we're about to kill Sarah, yeah. So we've just got to remind the player of her compassion, and we're going to do this for the last few moments. Brave Sarah. Those people are on fire. So the player wants to play, the Ludus player is looking for the optimal experience. So we give him the white rabbit. Tommy becomes the white rabbit. We follow Tommy over there. And then when we get to the main game, Tess becomes the white rabbit. We're blocking off exits. In comes a car explosion. We're using salient lights here to guide as well. And Tommy's going to be a white rabbit still. Follow the lights, follow Tommy this way through the alley. We're taking an action to protect Sarah, so we're firmly cementing our point of view, aligning it with Joel, getting ready for the experience that Joel has. And Sarah dies, following Tommy, and he issues a command. And we say goodbye to Tommy. So he's gone away now, and he's going to be the thing that saves the day at the end, almost. Finally, we're on our own. We've lost our white rabbit, so we have to use these visual salient cues. We've got the light, we've got the gap in the wall there. Players, the Ludus players are following these cues. We've got a goal now, get to the highway. Sarah's being compassionate still. And these are her final words. Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy? I mean, unless you count the final words as, oh, which I'm not going to. Daddy, what about Uncle Tommy? How's that for a nice bit of design one, yeah? Right through to the end, brave little Sarah, thinking of others, putting others before herself. Right, drama. Drama is about contrast. We can plant, so once we're on this rising action, what we can do is plant a happy seed so that when the bad thing happens, you've got this bigger gap, greater contrast. Yeah, really powerful. So you see these little, I call them moments of prophetic misdirection. You'll see them all the time now. It's Jane Eyre, you know, she's happier than she's ever been. She's standing in the church, in a bridal gown, getting married to Mr. Rochester. She's never been happier. So she's happier than she's ever been before. And that's only so we can utterly destroy her. And then comes a chap, oh, this proceedings must end. I have to say, Mr. Rochester already has a wife. And now she's sadder than she's ever been before. Oh, Logan. Yeah, oh, Logan, this great moment with Xavier in bed. And Logan, I've got to, it doesn't, that's Brian Blessed. Logan, I have to say that was the best day of my life. I have never been happier. This is the happiest I've ever been. And your designer brain goes, oh, God, he's dead. And in goes the claws, and he's dead. Seconds later, he's dead. Really subtle moment. Maybe you never noticed it in the old classic Alien. There's Kane. First thing I'm going to do when we get back is eat some decent food. Oh, good, he's going to get back. Everything's going to be fine. Maybe not. Really subtle, really well done. And now we've got some this contrast now. He's made a promise to Sarah, everything's going to be fine. He's made a promise to us, everything's going to be fine. Here's the first moment of dread. Watch the players, watch the blood drain from their face when that soldier's on his radio. So there's a child here. but ellipsis. And that's that moment of dread. Absolutely beautiful. My heart almost stopped when I heard that word, but ellipsis. That's that moment the rug's being pulled out and you know the battling is about to happen. Really beautiful. And any ambiguity of threat is now absolutely solidified as a threat. Gun, this is the black moment. All hope is lost moment. There is no way out. And this is the reason we got rid of Tommy, so we can bring him back to save the day. Here's Tommy. Hurrah! Hope is not lost. And then straight into, oh no. Pretty much anything with the ellipsis. It's good for dread. Oh no. And then, I mean, watch the videos of the performances from these actors. They do interviews as well, loads of them on YouTube. It's absolutely harrowing that the noises that Sarah makes and the way she, I'm winding up again, the way she clutches at Joel, it's absolutely devastating. All of that tension paid off. Stick a soul into the watch, into the horror, that reflection upon what's just happened. And don't go into the main game here. Give the player a few moments to process what the heck has just happened. Let them deal with this. And that's that descending action. Give them a moment to wrestle with the meaning and the emotions. And give them a little bit of time. We're done. I hope that was good. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to come back now. I'm going to close my PowerPoint, come back. We'll have a few more moments together. This is our descending action. And we'll tie it all up. And what do you think? I hope you took something away from that. Oh, it's hard, isn't it? Distress noises, indeed. Oh, look at that, 601. I timed that to perfection. How are you all? Are you okay? Are you still there? Did you get anything from that? Was that good? Yeah. Anybody want to? Oh, there's a lot of. I'm just going to read some messages here. Oh, thank you, Jorge. I hope I pronounced your name right. I hope you took something from that. We covered quite a lot of ground, didn't we? And isn't it amazing to think that all of that stuff is happening in 15 minutes? But don't forget the ellipsis, Leonard. ... I mean, there are moments of absolute genius in those 15 minutes. I mean, this is the last lecture I do with my students. This is where we unify pretty much everything we've done over 2 years. And this is, going to the sort of the holy grail of emotions, to cry emotion. So I think it's just eye-opening for them to see that all of those lectures and all of those tasks that we've done for 2 years have been squished together, beautifully woven together into this 15-minute experience, interactive experience. It's amazing when you realize how much work goes into it. It was Edgar Degas, the ballet dancer painter, for those of you who know him, who suggested that art is easy when you don't know how, but very hard when you do. And that's exactly the same with game design. Everyone comes to us and they want to design games. And I showed our students in the first session a 5-year-old child making a game, using Scratch, using tools to make a game. We're making games when we're kids. That's not our goal at all. You want to be in that top 1% that can make a living by making games. So we're not interested in making games. No one cares. We're interested in making powerful, unforgettable, thank you very much, memorable experiences. All we have to do is to learn how to control these emotions, and we spend our entire lives then trying to make them increasingly more powerful, and how to create the most powerful and potent anticipatory forms of emotions and motivation that we can. You do that, players will throw money at you and they'll talk about your games forevermore. Thank you very much. Unless there's anything else anybody wants to bring up. I've got a bottle of whiskey waiting for me. I never said that. I never used to drink. I blame lockdown. Well, I can't go out tonight. Oh, I'll have a drink. Hope you had a good time. Hopefully, I'll see you all again soon. I don't know if Sabrina's going to come back or anything. Indeed.
Hi, I was stuck in the backstage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The book. That's the book you want to read. This is Robert McKee's story, The Bible for Screenwriters. This is the book on empathy. This is Matthew D. Lieberman. It's social. Why our brains are wired to connect. Matthew D. Lieberman. Check that out. Probably want to read Carl Iglesias as well, Writing for Emotional Impact. But absolutely do read McKee's story, and Paul Ekman, Emotions Revealed. That's your introduction to all the emotions. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you so much, Dave. You have to look at all the comments in the chats on YouTube and Facebook. People saying how much they loved the presentation and how they're missing the opportunity to dive into these kinds of breakdowns. And thank you for facilitating this experience for all of us watching now and in the future for the register, because if there was a lot today, the good news is that this will stay on our Facebook and on YouTube channel, and you can watch it again, and you can go back to look for the references that Dave so kindly mentioned and offered us here. Let me thank you for this and for illuminating us on what goes into those 15 minutes to make it so infectiously emotional. And I must say that the thing that I got out of this presentation was basically seeing the game designer in a new light, seeing them as a kind of a psychological user experience designer, and building everything else from there, getting the clarity over what kind of emotional journey you want to put your player through. And that's not something we kind of have time and space to do every day. So thank you so much for doing that for us. And whenever you want to tell us more.
Will you invite me again sometime, Sabrina?
I think you already have a fan club waiting for your next topic. So guys, let us know what else you want to hear from Dave, and maybe we can give him some homework.
I'd love to come back. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I mean, you've been wonderful, really, really wonderful. It's lovely to see you all in there. Lovely to see the comments. I don't know if I did a very good job answering your comments, but hopefully you've taken things away, and something's going to resonate with you and stay with you and help you to solve the design problems that we face every day. Thank you ever so much. Really, really had a good time. You're all lovely.
Thank you,
Sabrina. And thank you.
You can go crack up that bottle of whiskey. You deserve it.
And thank you, Alina, as well, behind the scenes working.
Yes, thank you for helping us, everyone. And to everybody else, keep coming. Keep writing to us in the chat on YouTube and on Facebook. Keep posting our questions, and we'll take them to Dave, and we'll see if we can, make some magic and prepare another topic based on what you comment there. So keep close with Amber Academy webinars, and we'll keep you posted when we come live with the next amazing session. Thank you so much, Dave. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
See you, everyone. Bye.